All right. Good morning. This is the somewhat regularly scheduled September meeting of the Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust. Today's date is September 30, 2022. We'll open the meeting with a roll call vote. If I may start with Rob Henry.
Rob Henry, present.
Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, present.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, present, and I'll be checking out early. I apologize for that.
Right. Diane had alerted us earlier that she's got to leave by 9:20. So we'll see if we can't expedite much of the agenda. And then Ted Carr.
Present.
And Steve Gomer, present. We'll now call the meeting to order. And we start with public comments and recognize Chris Davis. Chris, you're muted.
I am unmuted now. I guess I had a, is this for on items not on the agenda for public comment, or are you going to speak to items around 25 Heather and I'll have a chance to speak at that time?
This is for any item not on the agenda.
Okay, great. Well, I'll wait for the 8:50 item.
Well, that won't be at 8:50. That will be at, well, I guess it will be at 8:50. Next step is update on the parcels of on 25 Heather Drive, 39 Mill Lane. And we'll start with the status of land transfer. Cindy, I think we at this point, Cindy Amara, we'd recognize you at this point.
I'm sorry, I'm having some background noise here.
I know that when Lauren was going to speak with Chris Senior first, before I reached out to town council, and I don't know if that's happened yet.
Right, so that's in progress. I'm discussion with Chris Senior to get town council and Cindy together so that they can draft the paperwork.
Okay, so that's in process, but not completed.
Correct.
All right. Real estate agent selection was an item that was handed off to one of our members who in fact is not present today. So I don't know that we have a status on that.
No, regrettably, Tom was going to report on that.
Yeah. And the final item was next steps, which at this point sounds like we're really back to the first item, which is the status of the land transfer.
I think once town council and I talk, I don't think it will be a particularly long process to get, a deed transferred, because you're not doing a whole lot of changing of information. So it should move pretty quickly. So I don't see that as being a long process once I get together with town council.
Can you estimate a time frame?
If it was the only thing on anyone's agenda, it could get done. The document back and forth could be done in a day, in my opinion. I don't know how long it's going to take to get authorization. I don't know how difficult it will be to actually get town council to meet with me. But I would strongly hope that, by the time we have another meeting, we'll have, recorded information. I can't promise you that, but I don't see any reason why there should be any delay.
Okay.
But that being said, we're here and this town meeting was in May, so.
I noticed that Diane Kennedy has her hand up. So Diane, question, comment?
Well, no, I just wanted to say what Cindy Amara just said. I mean, town meeting was in May. It is the end of September, almost October. We just got to get answers for ourselves, for the neighbors and any other citizen interested in this project. So anything I can do to be helpful, it really needs to happen. And if you need me to put pressure on anybody, please reach out to me.
All right. Any other comments from the trustees?
I guess for Lauren, do you need our help to get this organized or moving forward? Anything we can do?
I don't think at this point, but I will and certainly be in touch with the chair
Okay.
if need be. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, Chris Davis from the audience has his hand up to make a comment on this, or the chair recognizes Chris Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess I have a couple of questions. You all have seemed to go back to the prior approach of kind of keeping this kind of in the dark for the neighbors in the community that are involved here. I've noticed any conversation about the last two from the last two meetings that I can see that discussed this, all did it in an executive session. So there was no opportunity for comment, no ability to understand really what was occurring as part of that. I think we've continued to, we still remain incredibly concerned with the approach that this board and the select board is kind of moving forward with this. More of this board, we don't know what your plan is for selling this property. We haven't heard any discussion of it. I know you continue to maintain that you don't own it yet, so you can't really talk about it, but that's kind of, I think, I think that's silly. Does this board have a plan for selling the property yet? And what are you expecting to do? What have you done to address any of the concerns we've raised about the process you seem to be taking here? We still have not received an answer to our May letter from you all, not anything from you. Like, again, what are you doing to kind of address our concerns as it relates to this property that's in our neighborhood?
Well, point by point, let's start with the letter. That there was a written response that went out. Lauren, do you have a date on that?
I'm looking for that right now, actually.
Okay.
Actually, yes, I sent that on August 23rd.
Yeah. Now, by the way, do you have? How was it sent? Was it responsive by email or by U.S. mail or both?
Via email.
Okay.
Can we just
So-
double check, Mr. Davis? Do you have a copy of that correspondence?
I'll have to go take a peek. I don't recall receiving it. Was it sent to me specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, it would have been sent to your address as well as I believe Rob Spofford. Lauren, if you wouldn't mind, just pull the email address list when you have a chance. And the second part of to the second point that you had made.
Yeah.
Chris.
Okay. All right. I'll go check to see if it's lodged in my spam or something.
Yeah.
Or
Sorry.
I'm
sorry to interrupt.
I'm cutting you off.
Mr. Davis, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just want to be factual. And so when we say we haven't heard from you, we want to make sure, have you heard from us?
No, we have not heard from you.
Okay, could you?
I do not have constructive receipt of a letter from you all at this point.
Okay, Lauren, could we just pause for a second and take a look at the list and see if it went to Mr. Davis, please?
So I emailed it to Chris Davis's cdavis2844@gmail.com.
Is that your email address, Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Okay. why
And
don't you
the reason it was sent to Mr. Davis's email is because I received his email. That was how we received the initial correspondence. So we returned it in the same manner.
That's fine. I just want to make sure Mr. Davis has and recognizes that we did respond to his letter, whether or
And
not you
then
read it.
I
guess-
actually did. So you would all actually have a copy of this as
Whether or not
well.
I read it or received it, it's a different thing. You
Okay.
guys realized that.
Yes, I want to I just want to address the facts. You sent us a letter and we responded. I want to make sure you have it.
I'll have to search for it. I have not seen a letter come in, so.
Okay, let's just wait until Mr. Davis has a moment to look at his email.
I'll resend it right now.
While Chris is looking for it, I just want to make a simple point that the letter was responsive to Mr. Davis's original note, which apparently represented, I shouldn't say apparently, represented the view as was testified by other neighbors of both Mr. Davis and other residents on Heather Drive.
I've got the letter you just forwarded here.
You said you did receive?
I've got the letter you just sent. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so sorry to be a nudge on this. I want to make sure that we were responsive to Mr. Davis. So when Mr. Davis says, I haven't heard from you, I want to make sure he has the original letter that we sent.
I have the letter that you just sent. Let me see what
Okay.
else.
Let's just take a moment until Mr. Davis has a moment to look for that.
So this is largely historical and okay, so you guys are going to go out and hire a realtor?
Sorry, can I just confirm, Mr. Davis, did you receive and just now
I've
found?
got it. I'm reading it right now. What are
Okay,
we,
good.
why are we continuing to go forward with this?
Because we're very glad to do it. We're an organization that just needs to base everything on facts. So when you say you haven't heard from us, I want to make sure that you have heard from us.
I have heard from you. I've got
Okay.
your August letter, 11th letter in front of me right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Chairman. Let's continue.
Okay, so the second part of that, Chris, is we have discussed in open meeting our intent, assuming that we obtain the transfer of deed to the trust, that we intend to sell the property and do so by, frankly, simply hiring a realtor to list it for public sale.
Okay, and stick a sign out front and just wait for offers to come in. Is that the plan?
We're putting it onto the public market for sale. Yes.
So your procurement process is to hire a broker through an RFP process, and then you're just going to put a sign out front and take what you think is the best price that comes in. Is there any timelines, or is there
At the moment,
RFP process?
we haven't set a deadline for execution. No. But then again, the original plan here was to take possession of the property soon after annual town meeting, but that process got fairly well gummed up at the Board of Selectmen level. And so we're still, frankly, we're in the position that you least wanted to be in, and that is limbo.
I don't, yes, you're absolutely right. And we're in that position because you failed to kind of communicate what was going on in the beginning, and, you know, let people have time to kind of have a conversation about this.
We're in that position because the property hasn't transferred.
No, that it had you kind of, again, I'm not like, I won't go back to the past stuff. Yes, we're in limbo right now. We shouldn't even be here, first off, to begin with.
We both agree with that.
We should not be here to begin with. Had this been documented properly and we've been able to give enough time to kind of bring people to the meeting, we wouldn't have lost by 8 votes. We would have won by 30 or 40 votes. That's ship's passed. My concern, you're going to still keep us in limbo because you're not providing the best way to get to a fair price on a public property. It's the same thing that you do in your business. I'm sure any of you do when you're selling properties. You disclose information about the property and then you let people go through a process to bid it. I think what you're telling me is you're not going through an RFP process now. You're just going to slap a sign up out front and that property is going to sit there until you get an offer that you accept. Or do you have, you know, are you establishing timelines around this? And are you providing any information about prior DEP filings, which conveniently are not available at the town hall anymore because they lost a bunch of their documents in flood. So anyone trying to do diligence won't find that. Are you providing any level of due diligence on the wetlands on the property? That it is, you know, there's some question as to whether it is a conforming lot. Is there anything that you all are doing to provide information about this property to the general public as part of your sales process?
Bear with me for just a second, Chris. Cindy Amara, did you want to be responsive to that?
Yeah, I think that at this point, none of those decisions have been 100% made. And I can say on behalf of the trust that they will do what any seller, a responsible seller of property would do. And any responsible purchaser of a property has to do their own due diligence. And that's just common sense in buying and selling real estate. At this point, I think the trust has been above board and said exactly where they're standing and what they're going to do. Details of what a realtor is going to do, I don't think they can fairly answer at this point. But more importantly, I just want to make sure that, you know, everyone's aware that as the seller, they will do what a seller is responsible to do. And as a potential buyer or purchaser of property, that individual has to do their own due diligence. And that's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you, Cindy. And Chris, to that point, the method of sale at this point has not been finalized. We're frankly waiting for, as you know, we can't do a thing, or we don't feel comfortable proceeding until we actually have possession of the property. But look to gain an understanding from a licensed realtor as to what method they believe might be most effective for the purchase, or I should say for the offer of the property. They may come back and propose to us that they believe an auction process might be appropriate, right? They may believe that they're best doing direct marketing. The long and short of it is we're not at that point yet, but you can rest assured by way of both our written communication and this communication and previous meetings communication. Our intent is to sell the piece of property, period. We're looking for it to help fund the trust. That's it. All right, we've got a lot of things going in the hopper right now around the community with respect to developing affordable housing or acquiring properties and then putting deed restrictions on them, which costs money. That's where we believe our funds are best spent.
Certainly understand the goals of the trust. I think I've made myself abundantly clear. I think what you all are doing is a very valuable and worthwhile endeavor for the community of Cohasset. There's no complaints about what the goals of the trust are. This is not my backyard. This is, don't want a piece of property. What my concern is, I've explained it a couple times now, is relying on a real estate broker who's getting a commission to go sell a piece of property. I don't think many of us hold them in the highest regard for the most quality of individuals in selling properties. Right now, throw a license up, put a site on, get a listing, and you sell a house and you make your money and you move on to the next one. That's not the type of person we're looking for this type of asset. You have, what it seems to me, the process is you're going to get from a broker is, let's find a sucker to come in here and buy this property without doing any due diligence and accept it, just blindly accept it. And I don't think you're going to find that process when it comes to a development parcel. Being a developer myself, we don't do things like that. No reasonable developer would. You're going to get bids that are contingent on due diligence, which is going to require a significant amount of work. No party is going to close on this property without doing surveys and wetlands and other things. So you may get someone that comes in and throws a $500,000 bid on this property, wins the opportunity to do due diligence, goes through it, and then comes back and says, you know what? We don't think we can purchase this unless it's at a price of $100,000. What do you do then? That's a broken process, and that keeps it in limbo. We wouldn't be in limbo right now if you guys came and had a normal process around that reflects this parcel and this property, recognizing the significant impacts of past DEP filings and wetlands on the property. It is not properly registered now because of the history of the way the property was taken by the town, ultimately received by the town as part of a settlement. So those are the concerns that you're walking into a broken process before it even begins. That's the concern. So we're hoping you guys are coming up with some plans to address that, but going to a broker, hiring Frank Neer or whoever you want to go down the list to sell this parcel is not going to get you to a complete process.
Well, thank you for your opinion on that. I just,
not an opinion, it's this is the way the process.
Thank you for your opinion on that. I just remind Chris, as well as the trust, that we're not a business entity. We're a trust. We have a fiduciary duty, right? While you have the freedom of expressing the opinion about the best business method for executing the sale of a property, the fact of the matter is that as we all sit here today, none of us are going to be hands-on and fingerprinting the actual execution of the sale. So we need to hire outside help to get that done. That's the nature of the trust. Our job is to make sure that whatever that process is meets and it is in accordance with Mass General laws and the very nature of a fiduciary duty of a trustee. All right. So again, while it may not be a process by which you believe will get to the most successful conclusion, and I'm not clear as to whether or not you believe that successful conclusion is for your objectives or our own. The fact of the matter is our objective doesn't change, which was one of your first observations. And it hasn't changed over the past 3 months, 4 months. We want to sell the property, all right, period. If that property generates $5,000, then that's what it generates. If it generates $200,000, then, but then that's good as well, because ultimately it falls to the coffers of the trust to go on with the mission. This is a piece of property for us. And as a result of that, potentially something that raises money for the trust in its endeavor.
I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to impart maybe the concerns of the folks in this neighborhood. We understand fiduciary responsibilities, but a fiduciary responsibility is also using your best judgment. And this board, I'm sure, has some collective experience in owning and selling real estate development properties. Maybe the one board member that's supposedly been part of this isn't here right now, but I do know part of your fiduciary responsibility is to use your best judgment and collect information that gets you through a process. You've taken on the responsibility of this property when it's transferred to you, and that creates a responsibility of you to the community to make sure that this is done in an appropriate manner. And that's what we're asking you to do, is recognize the concerns that we have about the process you're taking on this property. There is a blind, ignorance to the property itself and what it is. And we don't want it to twist in the wind for months and months and months because you don't accept those issues.
Well, and we appreciate that. If I may, and then at this point, I'll end up closing out the conversation. I'd simply point out that it has twisted in the wind now for the better part of 4 months. And it has not concluded. The second part of that is, if it seems unresponsive in a public meeting, I just simply point out to you that we anticipate taking acquisition or taking ownership of this piece of property. Our desire is to maximize the price for that piece of property. And every conversation we have in which an audience member points out how poorly we've executed or how much we don't know about the property, it does diminuate the value of that property for anybody paying attention to a public and local meeting. If we're not commenting on it, you now understand why, right? We're also duty bound to maintain the value of our assets, not to talk them down. We don't talk.
You don't know what the value of the asset is, though. You have no clue as to what the value of that asset is. And information. Information makes the value. Information will determine what the value of that asset is.
I appreciate that point. Actually, we don't know the value of the asset, and we frankly will never know the value of the asset until we're ready to conclude a sale, because at that point we find the clearing price, and only at that point.
And the original intent was to sell this asset for $600,000 or $700,000, not for $5,000.
No, the original intent was to sell this asset. Period.
Yeah,
all right. We don't know what it's worth, and the fact of the matter is that that land value in this town is high, and if it were to sell as a conforming lot, then that was the estimate of what that value might be. At the moment, we wouldn't know, and frankly, we don't have anything more that we can comment on because we don't own it. that gets us into a dicey area as well, right? Every time we
This is a-
talk publicly about a piece of property that we don't own, we run the risk of reducing that value further still. So,
Listen, I know that again, not to be argumentative, and I'll finish my comments here and then we can go. I think there is alignment if the intent is to put this property through a process that gets its highest and best value in a quick and efficient manner. I will continue to make this point, and this will, if it continues to delay the transfer to you all and putting it on, until I hear a process, aside from just finding a broker and putting a sign up out front, that recognizes that this property has unique aspects to it that need to be considered in the process, then you'll find that I am in perfect alignment. What I'm concerned about right now, and the group continues to be concerned about, is that there is no plan other than hiring a broker that gives no means or no consideration to the history of the property. And you guys don't know it, and we're here to provide it to you. And that's ultimately going to get you to the value. So I'll finish there. You can generally understand our concerns. It's process. It's where you look to go with the property and how you do it. If this ends up being a broken process where you get a high value and they retrade it as part of the sale process and it doesn't come back out to the public market, you've got a major issue on your hands from a sale. And that's going to, that's not the way public lands are supposed to be disposed of in towns. And that's just what we're going to be keeping our eyes on as you go through it. We could be a buyer if the price is within reason for us to buy it. If someone wants to pay a lot of money and develop a beautiful home behind my house, I'm fine with it. I really don't have an issue. I have an issue with this sitting in the Affordable Housing Trust hands, which it isn't in right now, but in your hands for multiple months because your process is flawed. And that's our concern. And and I'll leave it there. And if there's any comments you want, I won't say another word.
okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments from trust members? Seeing none, Lauren, if we can, forgive me, I don't have the agenda in front of me. You had it up prior. I just want to move on to the next item.
Can I just double check, Steve? Are there
Yes.
any other citizens
Oh,
that
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ted.
that would like to be heard on this matter? Let's just wait for a moment and see if there are any other citizens that would like to be heard on this matter.
I don't believe we've had any new ordinances. There's just one that they have not.
So just Mr. Davis? Okay. I just want to make sure we're inclusive of anybody that would like to be heard on this matter, because among other things, that's why we have these meetings. So people that share concerns or information, we love it. I just want to make sure that we are responsive and make sure that we are available to take any other comments.
If it's helpful, Mr. Carr, I'm forwarding this letter on to the community group here to let them know that you guys have in fact responded. Fortunately, we're seeing now, but none of it would seem to be time sensitive. So.
Okay. Seeing that there are no further comments on the item surrounding the update on Heather Drive, Mill Lane parcels, we'll move on.
Steve, could I just ask, did you confirm that you sent this also to, you said Rob Spofford, did he also get the email? Was he on the list, on the CC?
I'm sorry, I don't believe I have a contact for Rob Spofford. I'm not familiar with that individual.
Okay.
And Rob Henry, that was my comment. I was making an assumption.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, discussion. By the way, I just as a point of clarity, that letter did also include copies going to the individual select board members. All right. We have 3 items on the following piece, discussion of fiscal year 23.
And Steve, let me just also point out, now that we're wrapping up on this question, I guess I would make the comment, as of today, the Affordable Housing Trust does not own or is not in control of this parcel of land. I just, for the record, want to make sure that everybody is aware of that.
I think the point of clarification there, Ted, is that we do not have we do not have possession of the deed.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, sure. All right. Project pipeline was going to be handled by Tom Mead, who is not present. Lauren, do you feel comfortable just ticking through some of the affordable housing items on our agenda? Or not on our, I'm sorry, not on the agenda, on the planning board's radar.
Sure, there's a lot of the projects since our last meeting don't have substantial updates since they're in active construction. That includes 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, that is still in construction process, nearing closer to where they'll be able to get certificates of occupancy, but not at this stage. The building inspector does have a plan that they're working with the applicant to, if they need to wind up phasing in units, that they would put the affordable ones on in the forefront before issuing the other C of Os for the other non-deed restricted units. For 1 Pleasant Street is just moving along with construction. They were in early stages last our update, so they still got a long way to go, but they're moving forward. 55 South Main Street, which would be a new one to add to our list. They are currently through the planning board process right now for redevelopment of the gas station parcel in the village. They're proposing mixed use building there, and the count right now, they would, with the inclusionary zoning applicable, they would need to provide 2 units. So they plan to meet with the Affordable Housing Steering Committee in October to review with them a preliminary plan. I haven't seen any material yet, but when I spoke with the applicant, they were inquiring on the process that the Elm Street property did with the offsite units, and we're looking at a similar process. So I believe that they may be looking forward to an offsite. I don't know that that's their original plan, but we'll see in October when they come to the steering committee.
Yeah, Lauren, is that development plan that they're presenting so far for rental units or for condominium ownership?
They haven't answered that question yet. So that's part of why this is sort of very much in limbo. The planning board was very adamant at their last meeting that they're really interested in these details. They were a little upset that they hadn't gotten them this stage in the process, but the applicant is working on it and planning to meet a steering committee, and was indicative that they would be bringing forward a proposal shortly. So once I have that, I'd be happy to share it all with you for information.
Okay.
So that's more to come on that one. Let me think. 808 Jerusalem Road is the Habitat for Humanity project up on the west corner. That is moving forward. They received their zoning board processes, and they just recently lost their primary person who does their fundraising, but they just onboarded a new person. So there's a little bit of a lapse in that process, but they plan to introduce me to that individual shortly. So they'll be getting back on track with that. And I would anticipate they'll be moving forward. They do, the way that Habitat works is that they sort of need to close out their other projects that they're doing before they begin the other ones. So I think if there's any sort of delay in their backlog, it may impact us, but they're still moving ahead and things are progressing with that project. And then let me think, I'm sure there's one I'm missing.
Do we talk about North Main Street?
North Main Street.
The,
147 South Main?
no, North
Oh.
Main, near the train
Okay,
station.
yes, thank you. 502 North Main Street is a proposal that was put forth by a property owner that owns property at 502 North Main across from the train station and near the Cohasset Golf. Is that, I said it wrong last time, is it the golf club?
Yeah, it's a golf club.
Okay,
right.
thank you. I used the wrong terminology last time I explained this. So the property owner essentially came to the town, had heard about the MBTA community legislation about multifamily being encouraged by the state, thought that their property was a fitting location, and said, you know, what is the town doing? At the time, we haven't really figured out a plan for compliance. It's a whole nother conversation to come. But this property owner said, in the meantime, I'd like to move forward with development, and approached us with a proposal for a local initiative program, which is a sort of a friendly 40B. It's a comprehensive application process. It is the same process that we did for 390 CJC Highway and 808 Jerusalem Road. And it is a process in which you essentially go through, it requires a state sign off first that the project is eligible, and then you can proceed with the local zoning board of appeals for a comprehensive permit process.
Okay.
The only way to move forward with that is if if the select board signs off, yes, that we want to be a co-applicant to submit this to the state to determine eligibility. And that is where we're at right now, where the applicant has submitted a package that's been given to the select board. They haven't made a determination on it yet. They do plan to meet on it again, I believe, at their next meeting. I have to confirm that, but that is sort of, the Affordable Housing Steering Committee did meet and recommend the project. The planning board discussed it briefly under items not anticipated in 48 hours per a certain request at their meeting last night, or I'm sorry, on Wednesday. And they had some general feedback. They weren't opposed to the concept of multifamily and that on that site, but they did have some feedback as, per aesthetics and what the building structure was like. So it's a preliminary proposal. I also just received an email from someone a former colleague asking about it who had heard it in the news today. So you all may be hearing about it because it seems like it's been published. So right now it's very preliminary though. And I just want to reaffirm that with this sort of comprehensive permit application that's a friendly 40B, you can only move forward if the town agrees to move forward, because we currently still have an SHI count that is in safe harbor. We still have over 10%. And at this point, while we know that once the 2020 census numbers are finally finalized and the subsidized housing inventory can be updated, that we may fall below that. That's still at least several months out at this point that we can anticipate.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That's the last one. Hold on. 87, 89 Cushing Road. The units they're still accepting active participants. So anytime, we've been encouraging folks to submit applications. The lottery was not awarded.
Really?
Right.
That's interesting. Okay.
They didn't receive complete applications.
Okay. But if you guys remember, Cushing Road is are the 4 units that CHP, Cohasset Hospitality Partners, purchased, for which they purchased a deed restriction, maintaining that property for affordable housing for at least another 30 years. So, okay.
Can I ask a question about that? If they were not able to, does anybody know the answer? If they're not able to fill those because of applications, what's the next steps on that? Anybody know the answer?
Ted, you froze in the middle of your
I'm
your
sorry.
question.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I guess the question is, since they were not able to get applications or fill those spots, does anybody know what the next steps are for that project? What happens next?
Lauren, you have a,
I will defer to council. I understand that it would just be open until filled.
Open till fill. Okay. And Cindy, any thoughts?
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, if you've got a deed restriction mandating affordability, you have to comply with that. I'm not positive what other options they are, but they would have to fill it as affordable. So it would stay open.
Mr. Henry.
Yeah. Lauren, how about the Elm Street, 87 Elm Street? What's the update on that?
Those are the Cushing Road projects are the ones that were associated with the offsite units for 87 and 124 Elm Street. That's the ones that we're talking about right now.
Well, the one that Tom and I looked at because the homeowner is supposedly.
Oh, that's
that's coming up under.
That's still
the executive
confidential.
session.
Yep.
Yep. We'll bring that up later in the executive session. Okay. Any update on the communication plan?
I do not, and I think that's my fault. Sorry
No,
about that.
I don't have any updates either. Last, I spoke with Justin Schreier at probably back earlier in the summer in June about first thing would be to enhance our component on the town website that lists, for example, the pipelines, anything that's open for public knowledge. Those are kind of the next steps, just to be carrying forward or making available, being able to direct people to the information about what the Affordable Housing Trust is planning to put forward.
From the perspective again of today's conversation, which is actually an ongoing conversation with neighbors at Heather Drive and Mill Lane, it simply emphasizes the need to have an additional public outlet outside of these meetings, so that that there is a place accessible to the public generally. To the extent that you need assistance, I realize that Diane Kennedy's left, but if we need assistance to gain some attention from the town's resources, please speak up. And Cindy and Ted, that's not directed particularly at you. It's just a general comment. But speak up because it's not a problem to rattle a cage or two to get some help. That this, among so many other things, is grinding at a glacial pace, and it's not helping.
No argument there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I have not had the time and
Not-
attention for it. And also remember, Justin was just beginning when I met with him as well. So I think.
No, I understand.
It's important too.
Yeah, I'm simply recognizing that, as trustees, Cindy, Ted, you're not expected to understand web design, right? That's not going to happen, right? And so I understand that someone's just started getting their feet wet and the like, but if we need to get an outside resource, we'll get an outside resource. I guess that's the point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. But yeah,
Okay.
my dear friend Cindy works at this harder than I do, and I usually find myself at the moment, I will do more. And I would say, thank you very much.
But my comment on this is not directed at either of you, either as individuals or as a joint effort, but rather to say, if you don't mind, remember that the job here is the communication strategy, the execution of it. We're either going to use town resources, or in the absence of obtaining them, let's get our own and act on it from the executive level, which frankly, Cindy, I've seen you do a lot, and the same with you, Ted. So, and I'm thinking of it as I would imagine each of you are, that we've got questions that have arisen from members of the community about our activities. This is a simple approach for us, and so if we need help to get it rolling, let's get the help we need. That's all. And by the way, I'm not kicking it back to you. I'm happy to lend two hands to it as well. I just need, I don't want to intercede on something you already have in process.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. The financing plan has not materially
Steve,
updated.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Steve. Lauren, yeah.
Just some information for you, if I could. I just want to speak to the last thing, the communication plan. I just want to note that since we last met, actually, they were in the midst of a whole town update and revitalization of the website, a refresh. So the town website does all look different. They've been trying to make sure things are in a more cohesive manner and fashion. So they've been doing that. In addition, Justin Scherer has been really focused on the zoning initiative that's going on right now, which I can talk a little bit more later at the end of the meeting, but I'm sure that he would be happy to sit down and do some more information on the website and get that going for this committee, but he's not going to create the content. He needs to meet with the committee and get the content from them. That way he can then embed it. Like, he's not going to be the one to write and decide what should be on your page, so I'm happy to help facilitate that, but he's be more than happy to, again, give some more attention and embellish that however you would like.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I would imagine that Cindy and Ted will probably connect or coordinate through you to see how quickly they can establish some communication with the. I'm sorry, Ted, did you?
Sorry, I see Mr. Davis has his hand raised. I just want to make sure
Thank you.
he has a comment. Yep.
I do, and I'll keep it brief. As it relates to what you're talking about here now and some of the properties you just mentioned, the Main Street property, and I know this board doesn't control those properties right now, but you are discussing them. One of our major concerns in this process is that there was no reference to 25 Heather Drive or Mill Lane in any prior agendas, and then the filing of minutes seemed to be slow in other aspects and different boards as well. But so at what point do you decide you're going to put any discussions that you all have as a group? Because this is very sensitive, as you all can imagine. At what point, and what's your policy for deciding when you post an address of related to a discussion of a property that you're potentially considering to acquire? Because that's the fundamental flaw as to why we're in limbo here on 25 Heather. But I would ask that general question and then I'll, I have one other comment and then I'll take it offline again. As it relates to this agenda that you have right now, this does not show up on the town's website when you go to click on and try and get agendas under the, the agenda and minute meeting section. You have to actually go to your section to get it. I clicked on, and this is great. Thank you for pulling this up. But this particular agenda, when you type in affordable housing trust, doesn't come up in, you have to kind of do some searching for it under your specific group, not in the company's, the town. If you go to the town's first website, the first front page where it gives you a click through to agendas.
Lauren?
On the town's front page, we always direct people to the public meeting calendar. That's where the town clerk posts all of the public meetings. And if you go to the town page and scroll down, the first one you see is Friday, September 30th, Affordable Housing Trust, and you can click to get to the
So
agenda.
I didn't get to that one. If you go to government, I'm sorry, if you just go to the town's website and those little blocks, you just passed over it. Where it gives you to click on meetings and agendas.
What I'm saying, Chris, is this is where the public meeting is posted on the website, exactly where it's supposed to be.
Okay, but just do me a favor, go back to, just click one back.
I'm not going to entertain, Chris, it's posted exactly on the town clerk's meeting.
It is
post.
not posted. Just, would you humor me for a second?
Chris, I appreciate your comment. What I think what you're referring to at the moment is a technical issue with respect to navigation within the website. And the town has recognized that it is difficult to navigate the website in a coherent manner. So there are links that you're pulling one up, and Lauren, just for point of clarity, while the public meeting calendar brings you right to the agendas for any posted public meeting, the separate link for meetings and agendas doesn't necessarily fully link with the public calendar. I found the same problem.
Yes.
And having said that, we appreciate the feedback, but Chris, that's at this meeting, there's nothing that we can do to execute on that. And then to answer your other question, if we're in a public meeting and there is a topic arisen surrounding a particular parcel, first of all, as long as we're holding the meetings remotely, they're recorded. We do discuss parcels specifically by address or by parcel number. All right, and I believe that our agendas have done that as well with respect to 25 Heather Drive and Mill Lane. Now, having said that, those are the only two parcels that we've discussed for purposes of ownership. Everything else that we're discussing at this point is a matter of public record by way of application, and we're not involved in it at the moment, either financially or in any other way with the applicant, short of offering input on what their affordable housing component might be. I hope that answers your question on the second item.
I just factually, going back to facts, prior to the town meeting, there was no reference ever in any of your agendas, published agendas, to 25 Heather Drive.
And I'm so sorry to be a nudge on this, but I just, I'm looking at an agenda that is almost a year ago. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm incorrect. A little over a year ago that the addresses of these properties were first posted on our agenda. And we're glad to send you copies of that, Mr. Davis. I just, part of the problem, we appreciate you, please. We don't want to sound like we're frustrated. We just feel very strongly that we just need to, when somebody makes a comment, we need to just sort of make sure that the facts are all laid out. So
that's fine. And this is public record. So I certainly understand that.
And
I'll send you the 5 agendas previously where you discussed 25 Heather, where it was not on the agenda.
Okay.
I'll send you the, where it was discussed in the minutes, it was not on the agenda. to make us aware that you were speaking about a property in our neighborhood.
Okay,
I'm happy to
that would-
forward.
thank you very much. That would be great.
Um,
Thank
all
you.
right. Are we done with this topic for now? Once again, I think it points up the clear need for executing on a communication plan.
Yeah. And Steve, I'm sorry, before we go, I
ahead,
see
Ted.
there's another person only listed as Corey here. I just want to make sure that person who's been listening, whoever that is, if they have any comment on this topic, I just want to make sure we're inclusive of everybody. I must say, usually it's just us by ourselves. So we're delighted to have people join us, but I just see somebody else listed as Corey, and I just want to make sure they have any comment, that they have an opportunity to say anything they'd like. Okay, I guess not. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. The final piece of this was this particular subject heading was the financing plan. I just have a continuing update for you. We are at the close of this quarter. I'm going to ask the finance group to give us an update on fund status. But as I understand it at the moment, we currently have approximately $1 million in the fund. And we have contingent funding of another $250,000 as voted at town meeting through CPC funds for any additional project that we wish to undertake. It's very possible, even likely, that we'll go back to CPC to ask for some or all of that funding specifically for the Elm Street property. Okay. All right. Lauren, God bless your kid. But tell me where we are. Are we about to go into executive session?
Oh, one quick update, Affordable Housing
Oh,
Steering
thank you.
Committee. So at the end of the
Thank you.
Affordable Housing Steering Committee's August meeting, the chair officially resigned and stepped off and was not going to, that was Rob Jeffers. So at the beginning of their September meeting, they reorganized. Paul Kearse is now the chair and Mary Hines is the vice chair of the Affordable Housing Steering Committee. They also, previously, Rob Jeffers had submitted a letter to the select board about June, asking them to reconsider the seats. There are 7 seats on the Affordable Housing Steering Committee, but they were requesting that it be 5. In the past, they may have had quorum issues. So they still have 5 members currently. It is Paul Kearse, Mary Hines, Beth Tarpey, Jennifer Boylan, and who's the last person that I'm missing, of course, Susan Sardina. So that's the 5 that we have seated. They are going to be organizing with the zoning bylaw committee to co-host a zoning bylaw committee forum in November. The zoning bylaw committee is doing a series of forums in October, November, and December about different topics. Particularly in October will be the harbor and the village, talking about zoning concepts. And the idea for these forums is to sort of get people an opportunity to talk about concepts and understand them before you're putting text in front of them and before we're in a public hearing process with the planning board going into town meeting. The November one will be housing, which the steering committee will be involved with. And then in the December, we'll see climate and resiliency. So that's really what the Affordable Housing Steering Committee has been up to. And as you heard earlier a bit, their next meeting, they'll hear from 55 South Main Street to sort of talk through what their concept is to fulfill their inclusionary zoning requirements. So the other thing that I'll just note one last thing, they've really been doing some research, particularly Mary Hines, on payment in lieu processes, what other sort of communities have done. So I think that they may be sort of looking at proposing, and maybe this will be a segue through our zoning forum, that we will revisit the inclusionary zoning payment in lieu process, because it's very vague as it stands right now. So, and that's my update. The only other thing you have, our administrative, our next meeting date is October 12th. I don't think you have any minutes to approve unless someone correct me if I'm wrong. And then you can just, unless you have member comments, head into executive session.
Any member comments, Ted Carr?
Sorry, just the one thing I wanted to mention, and so I am the newest, in addition to this board, I am the newest member of the school committee in Cohasset. And I did double check. I just wanted to make sure that there was no conflict between my work on this board and the school committee. I checked with town clerk and everything like that. So I just wanted to just say to the group, I am the newest member of the school committee. There is no conflict for me to be on both boards. I'm delighted to continue to serve here, but I just wanted to bring it up here, as I have done also at the school committee meetings. But just wanted to bring that. It was something I did not anticipate doing, but there was an opening and no one was running or going to be on the committee. So I am now the newest member of the school committee also, but I just want you all to know that, and the school committee knows that too, but I just thought I should just make it for public comment here. Thanks.
Thank you, Ted. I have to ask as a personal note, I mean, what do you do for fun? Do you just put lighter fluid on your fingertips and
I do.
let it go?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I need another hobby. Sorry.
We should,
I must say,
we should talk more frequently.
I am very much enjoying the experience at the school committee. We have a wonderful board and everybody is totally dedicated and committed to, helping the children of the town, as I am. And so I'm honored to be there as well.
Well, like I said, congratulations. And oh my God, there seems to be a trend between select board members going back and forth between the school committee and the select board. I personally will break that trend.
Me too. One day.
All right.
Sorry to delay the meeting, Steve.
Not a problem. All right. So we do have a scheduled meeting for October 12th. And at the moment, we don't have any minutes for approval. And having at that point, or at this point in the agenda, we now have the option of going into executive session. And the reason for this is exemption number 6, which Lauren, forgive me, I can't read, but the discussion would potentially affect the value of real property if the chair so declares. And in fact, I do declare. That's actually the actual verbiage is to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. And that, in fact, is my finding. So with that, I will take a roll call vote to go into executive session and start with Rob Henry.
Yeah, don't we have to adjourn this meeting now first?
No, we'll come out of executive session specifically for the purpose of adjournment.
So I approve then, that's what we need.
Okay. Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Ted Carr,
Ted Carr, aye.
and Steve Gomer, aye. Okay, we are now in executive